Welcome to the Dental Business Guide podcast. From money to marketing to management, this podcast will help you run a better dental business.
Welcome back to the Dental Business Guide. I'm George, and I'm today with Aaron.
Hi, George. How you doing? You all right?
Yeah, very good. Today we're going to be talking about cybersecurity, and it's kind of a bland topic. People think, oh, why do I need cybersecurity, especially in dental? But believe it or not, cybersecurity is one of those things that is massively overlooked in most businesses. Actually, I mean, in most medium-sized businesses, and that's 10 employees plus, and up to a certain amount. That's their biggest target, and unfortunately, dental is one of those businesses that are completely overlooked in cybersecurity, especially. Everyone thinks of GP practices, pharmacies, that kind of thing. But believe it or not, dental practices have access to medical records just like GPs do, and yet they are not prepared in the slightest for any attacks.
Yeah, I think I can vouch and echo what you're saying, George. I've seen certain clients of ours over the last few years, and increasingly more now in this environment where cyber attacks are commonplace. And the easiest way for cyber attacks to occur are either through failure in systems in place in the practice, or they haven't got the right updated software, or if their software gets corrupted at the same time through a cyber attack, they don't have necessary backups to get the data back. So it's so important now more than ever. And I think we've seen, as a result of the sad situation in Ukraine, Russian hackers are now trying to attack Western businesses more and more.
Exactly that. They're trying to harm the businesses, because obviously we put sanctions in place, and we're quite frankly tanking their economy, and so Russian vigilantes are trying to fight back, if you will, in the cyber space, and unfortunately, we're going to see an influx, we're going to see a rise.
Absolutely, and I think what we've seen is large corporations, large organisations tend to have security departments, cybersecurity departments. They have all the patches in place. They have lots of protocols and systems in place. But the average small business, the average dental practice, really hasn't got anything in place. They might have an IT provider who just has provided them the computers and given some very basic software support,
antivirus
stuff.
That's about it.
Yeah, but you'll only ever know the problem of a cybersecurity attack when it actually happens to you.
Unfortunately,
and the effect it can have on literally destroying your business, potentially.
Oh, quite rightly.
So it's so important. And I think if I had to give a piece of advice to people over the next 6 to 12 months, get your cybersecurity right in place. Make sure you have all the necessary protections in place. So, George, what would be the things that you think people need to think about?
Well, there's obviously a decent antivirus software is just your quickest and safest bet. But it's not just that. It's my favorite analogy is, why wear body armor when you can take the bullets out of the gun? And and you got to think about that. It's obviously, think about is the body armor is the antivirus software. Now, why would you? I'm gonna try to find my words. It's, you don't get a virus, you don't get a ransomware, you don't get an attack willy nilly. You get it because you're open. Yeah, and what normally happens is it's because of your staff. Your staff are your issue. They are your biggest threat. And you might think, what do you mean by they're my biggest threat? They work for me, and you're correct, they do. But sometimes complacency is the biggest issue.
Sure.
You can go through life and you go on the webpage and you click on an advert by accident. And what happens is it downloads something, and then it opens up, and then unfortunately by that point you're too far gone. Or it could be an old patient of yours which has emailed you, or you believe it's an old patient, has emailed you and has asked you to make sure this file is okay. So you open up the email, click on the file, and there you go. You're infected. It's unfortunately that simple. And so this email I was just talking about just then is something called phishing. And phishing it's an automated process. It doesn't really happen by a human anymore. It's all now an automated script. So what happens is they have abundance of emails, and by abundance I mean a couple of million of them, and they'll just send out these emails, and these emails will link to a website that instantly downloads malware onto your computer. So what you need to be doing is you need to make sure that this email that you're receiving is legit and you don't open anything you aren't comfortable with. And unfortunately, the phishing attacks nowadays are getting more and more advanced. It's actually quite scary how advanced they are. So you can actually do something called phishing training, and that is taking the bullets out of the gun. That is very much so. You want to train your staff to understand and to identify potential threats, so you don't have those those leaks in the first place. You don't get those compromises. It's the human firewall is what you want to build. And a firewall is obviously it's your first defense on your computer. It's a physical wall, quote unquote, that stops any traffic that shouldn't be coming into your network coming in. But if you allow it to be entered by the staff member, that is where the problems start to arise. So you want to make sure your staff are trained and understand how it all works so you don't get compromised in the first place.
Absolutely. And I think if you look at just the general dental practice, practices are busy. People are calling the reception desk, people at the receptionists, busy picking up phones, dealing with patients. There's always hundreds of things going on. So the key thing has to be that the reception and people using computers in the practice are fully trained, because otherwise they could quickly and easily just open up an email which is a phishing email, and before you know it, a virus is downloaded and you're completely compromised. So as George mentioned, some training is really, really important, and there are systems and solutions out there which we can certainly help with that would help with that side of things.
Exactly, and there's kind of three main topics, subsections you want to call it, in security. You've got prevention, which is your training, your protection, which is should the training not work. You then have an antivirus software that should stop any malware coming through. And then lastly, you've got recovery. So in the unlikely event that all three of those have failed, you then have your data safely backed up each day onto an off-site server, off-site storage, any cloud-operated storage. Which what can happen is, should you get a malware onto your computer, such as a ransomware, which encrypts all your data, all your files, you can't open a single thing without paying some money on Bitcoin. Without doing that, then you have your data backed up. And that is the most important thing. As long as you've got recent backups, you can be okay. And unfortunately for us, we suffered as a business. A couple of years ago, I'm not sure if anyone remembers, there was a data center fire in Paris. And unfortunately, one of our servers was actually in that data center. And we thought, okay, it's in one central location, should be fine. But we never backed it up. So unfortunately, we did lose data. But thankfully, it was old data, which wasn't too bad to lose. But the fact is that it's a lesson we have learned. It's an expensive lesson we've learned. And that's unfortunately with everything with cybersecurity is very much you'll realize you need it once it's happening to you.
Correct.
And you might think to yourself, I work at a dental practice. I'm a small private dental practice in the middle of nowhere. Why would I bother having cybersecurity? And it's quite frankly, you're a prime target because the hackers, they know for a fact you don't have any prevention in place. It's 93% of healthcare in the last 5 years has had some sort of data breach, which is ridiculous to think about. And hacking and taking data from any healthcare business, it fetches a large sum on the black market. You take a stolen credit card number, it fetches about $1-2 US dollars per credit card number. But a stolen medical record, so that's things like everything, which obviously a dental practice especially has access to medical records. A stolen medical record fetches up to $50 per record stolen. Now, I'm sure most dental practices have about 1,000 patients, give or take, maybe more, on their books. Think of that. That is $50,000, which can be easily stolen. And that's ridiculous to think about. So this is what you need to do, is you need to make sure you have those three categories in place: the prevention, protection, and recovery.
Absolutely. And I think the first starting point is to look at what you have in place in your business. Okay, how are you protecting yourself from a cybersecurity point of view? Do you have any training in place? Then what is your antivirus solution? How good and robust is it? Is it being updated? Is it checking every machine, every laptop, every server, every piece of kit in your practice? Okay, and then finally, obviously, making sure that you have the required backups in place in your practice. And as George mentioned, there's so many ways to back up data, but what we've realized over the years is that you need to have backups locally, okay, which also back up to a third party outside, which also back up to a cloud, okay, because you want to get your business up and running as quickly as possible when it does go down. Quite often or not, I've seen clinics where they are backing up externally, but it might take 48 hours to a week or so to get that data back. And that was the issue that we had with our business a few years back, as George mentioned, is that we were backing up everything to the cloud, but the cloud and the backup center of the cloud center both had fires. So it took about 7 to 10 days to actually get that data back, which was very costly and very time consuming for us, which was an issue. But we managed to get the data back, as George mentioned. But if we'd had a backup solution in site, in our offices, as well as, say, at a third-party location, as well as on the cloud, we wouldn't have been in that situation. So I cannot stress how important having a robust backup system really is in your business. So, George, how can people get some help from us?
So I've obviously mentioned the three main subsections there. Think of it as a triangle, if you will. The protection, the recovery, and the prevention. Yeah. So obviously, all of those we actually offer a service for each subsection. We offer state-of-the-art, up-to-date training for phishing. You know, what we do is we have a tailor-made phishing program where we teach everything about phishing, how it works, how
Teddy in the background.
It's all right. We teach all of this through our tailored training program, which gives you relevant training for your practice. And then also what we also do is we also offer a service that actually simulates a phishing attack. So you as a business owner can attack your own business, your own staff, and you can see where your weaknesses are. So you can see if that training you're actually doing is helping. And that's the important thing, you know. You need to make sure you have all this training in place so that you can see where your weaknesses are. And then obviously moving on to the protection side is, again, we then offer a state-of-the-art AI learning antivirus software where it tracks everything. It goes through every single file on your computer and sees if it's malware, but it also does web protection. So if you do happen to click on a dodgy link, if you do happen to go onto a malicious website, you can actually go through that, and the antivirus software will prevent you from even looking at the website before it's even loaded up. So you can't download anything. And then obviously backup services. We do the same thing. We've got a storage server on our own site. You can back up your data up to us, which when we securely look after. We can do a backup each day. Sorry. What we can also do is we can also put a small storage server on your site, in your business. So that way you can recover it very quickly, just like that. And that's the most important thing. Is I think if you've got a 3-layer backup, it's what you need. And what I mean by 3-layer, I mean it backs up from your machine, your computer, onto a local storage server on your site. From there, it backs up to us and our secure storage server, and then from there, it backs up to a cloud backup data center somewhere on the other side of the world. So should there be an earthquake, God forbid, in London, imagine that, an earthquake in London. Should there be an earthquake in London and our storage server goes, your storage server goes, all that data's lost. But now we've got a backup on the other side of the world. The odds of there an earthquake being on the same data centers on different sides of the world at the same time is rather slim. But what I'm trying to say is we cover all 3 key areas of cybersecurity. We make sure you are protected and you're trained. We then make sure that should there be a fault and should there be a flaw in the training, you're then secure. And then from there, should the unlikely event of all 2 things failing so far, we then got that recovery.
Yeah, brilliant. George, I think Teddy agrees with you as well. And she's our backup and security guard here at our house. I think the postman has just been, that's why. But on a serious note, I cannot stress how important addressing cybersecurity in your practice is. And I think going forward, this will be a very, very hot topic and something that increasingly all practices, all businesses will need to address.
Yeah, quite rightly. But anyway, thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Teddy, for kind of confirming that. And over and out. Cheers.
Yeah, we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers, everyone. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening in to the Dental Business Guide podcast. We welcome your feedback, and if you're enjoying it, please let your friends know too. Until the next time on the Dental Business Guide podcast.